I think it was by the book. I don't remember.
No, before the book, I think.
It was before the book. Why? I don't remember how it was.
I think I saw your organization online. I saw that you exist in Torres Vedras, and I think I sent you a message and I said, well, I'm your neighbor, I live in Será, let's connect. And I think that's how it started.
And then we went to Será, and then we kept in touch. Then Evgenia done this project, Eternal Forest, at the Bienal do Cruz, which we were helping them. Actually, we did the communication, the digital communication to the Biennale, so we kept in touch. And then Evgenia thought, and we talked a lot about this, that could be interesting to do this project here in Torres Vedras. We have this space that we call Casa Azul, and this conversation was supposed to happen there, but as it is closed, we decided that we could do this session so people could know more about the project, and we kind of sense if there was some interest in doing this here. So we as association, we are trying to, let's say, facilitate eventually to do this project, Eternal Forest Sanctuary in Torres Vedras or near Torres Vedras, and try to find out if there is people interested so we can do this together, because it's a community project that Evgenia will, of course, explain it very well. So I am a cultural manager. My name is Daniela Ambrosio. That's where I came from. And George.
I'm simply the curator and ideologist, and also the producer and founder with Daniela and other friends of this cultural association. And my work mainly in Casa Azul is programming and being in contact with artists creating new things and in connection with community. So this project of Evgenia has this affinity of ideas and methods. So we are very interested to bring forces together with Evgenia and create this Eternal Forest Sanctuary that Evgenia will explain with more detail next. So I think it's now open to Evgenia to conduct this conversation.
Let me just add something. I think it would be nice for Evgenia as well. So our interest in this project, in terms of association, of course, is because we are now working in several things that are very related to sustainability and to the importance of environment. So I suggest that we all could, let's say, why we are interested in be part of it, or at least know the project. For us, that's how important it is, which is awareness about the environment through our projects or the projects that we support or promote somehow. So now I pass to you, Evgenia, for you to guide the conversation.
Thank you so much, Daniela and George, and I'm really happy to do this event today. We have been planning this event for a long time already, since last year. And we really wanted to do it physically in Casa Azul together. And of course, we would love to do it when it's possible. So today is just for us to maybe do like a pre-opening, pre-discussion, to get to know each other a little bit, to get to know the project, to get to know the vision and start thinking already. So maybe when we actually meet all of us in Torres Vedras next time, we can have a much clearer idea and we can already start maybe looking at some practical questions and already bring in more people in the room because all of you who are here today would have known something about it. So I know that already we have 7 people on the call, which is absolutely great. First of all, I would like to do a quick intro. Already Danielle and George introduced themselves. So my idea is that just to know who is here, I would like to invite all of you to just say your name and what brings you here today. Before doing that, I would like to mention I'm recording this session. Please let me know if you don't want to be recorded, if you have problem with that. Otherwise, I think it's for our benefit, for the benefit of the project, and of course for those who actually wanted to be here with us, but they could not. So if there are no objections to this, then I will maybe, well, I'll say my name. So my name is Evgenia Emets. I'm an artist and a poet. I live in Será. I'm your very close neighbor. And yes, I already been in Torres Vedras once, and well, many times, but once with the Eternal Forest. And some of you already have seen the film. And for those who haven't seen the film, I already started posting on the chat some links. So you can go after this discussion and you can open the whole presentation and the film, for the link is there. Please look at it, share with your friends, etc. And I'm here today to open the discussion about the possibility to create, co-create and emerge Eternal Forest Sanctuary in Torres Vedras. So, and I will pass to, who should I pass to? I will pass to Isabel.
Okay, I'm Isabel. I live in Torres Vedras. I'm an anthropologist, but I do not do anthropology. My personal interest in your project is we need something like that to have a sanctuary that is not related to any religious thing, to a place where we can go just to be with ourselves and with nature. So I'm trying to find something like that. It is very difficult in urban landscapes or places, and it was great to have something like that in Torres Vedras. That's why I'm here, and that's why I want to hear you and know how I can participate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. So Gabriela is saying something to me on the chat. Gabriela, why don't you say who you are and why you're here? Can you hear me? By the way, if you are not talking right now, can you mute yourself? Because I think we have just a little bit of microphone interference.
Yeah.
Gabriela will not talk right now, which is fine.
Can I?
Yes, of course.
My name is Eloisa. I'm living in São Paulo, and I would like to know more about the project. And I think that what we are living in Brazil, it's nowadays, your project, maybe we connected with something here, and I already talked with Evgenia to try to reply the project here too. Maybe we can do this in the future, I don't know. But I would like to hear more about the project and how we can multiply this idea. And that's, thank you.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you so much for being here with us, and very exciting to have you here all the way from Brazil. Okay, Rui, how about you? We already know each other.
Can you listen to me? Okay. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
So my name is Rui. I live usually in Torres Vedras, but now in this period I'm living in another city called Torres Novas. I'm in the countryside in the left. And of course I know the work of Evgenia for some time ago. And my interest is, of course, in the connection between spirituality and nature, of course, and try to have transformation in the mindset of people in relation to nature, and more specifically in the notion that the notion of nature as an autonomous being. It's called in Latin natura naturans. So it's more or less by that. I'm wondering about this project in Convite, the Santuário project in Torres Vedras, and I think if I can help, I will help, of course, but to understand the possible connections with other people and other groups. I don't know if Salome is in the group, I think not, but those kind of people who can help together this project.
Thank you. Really good to have you here. Looking forward to a discussion. And we've got here Sandra. Sandra, could you please say a few words about yourself and your connection to being here today? Rui, I think if you could mute yourself would be wonderful, because we have a bit of background. Thank you.
Hi, I'm an artist. I work essentially with kids. I have already. I'm going to tell something. My English is awful, so let me express myself, and then if you have some doubts, just tell me, okay? Well, I work with kids, and I have a little project in Caldas da Rainha that in Portuguese is stufa, in English is greenhouse. And that's a place that I work with kids and the families in a connection between heritage and natural heritage, okay? So I develop a lot of things between arts and environment and natural heritage. So, of course, when I saw this, I think, oh, it's a great project. I didn't saw the movie. You're okay, but I was reading about it, and well, that's it.
Thank you. Really excited to hear about your work as well. Later on, we can, when we do the circle of sharing, maybe you can see how here could also relate to the work that you are doing. Very excited to have you here with us. Thank you. All right. Sorry, muted myself. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you the presentation, which I prepared. Some of you know work better than other people. That's why I always repeat a few things. So, and let me just try see how it is going to work. Share screen. Yes, I think. Please tell me if you can see what I'm sharing. Yes, I think you can. So, let me start with a little bit of background. I'm just gonna talk you through a little bit about the project, how it actually came about, and why. So I'm gonna talk about the why of Eternal Forest. In fact, let me do like this, because it doesn't make sense to share presentation. I want to first focus you a little bit about the kind of the background. So I'm from a different country, and I only arrived to live in this country, in Portugal, about 3 years ago. So when I came here, it just coincided. The time and the space was such that a certain situation was kind of put in front of my eyes. So I was living in London before and working always as an artist, and myself from Russia. And when we moved to Portugal, it was such a coincidence. It was the year 2017. As we were moving, we kind of found ourselves going around Portugal, traveling and kind of meeting different people. And what we really saw is we saw the fires. It was the time of the fires, and it was the time when I saw a lot of suffering, both in terms of the nature itself and in terms of people. So I think that really kind of put a lot of things into a perspective for me. Imagine I was not really working with any ecological art at that point. I was doing a lot of visual art. I was doing a lot of performance, installation art, and basically being a very urban creature and very urban artist. And yeah, I mean, I always enjoyed nature, but what really motivated me to start this project is the actual situation that I saw. So very briefly, first I saw the landscape, and I saw that there is something interesting about the landscape that I'm seeing, because I don't think I've ever seen kind of monocultures to such extent. And I don't have to tell you more about it because you know better than me. But I think for me, it was kind of a shock. So since then, a lot of my work was connected to several things. Looking at the landscape, looking at what forest is, and kind of trying to go again and re-experience a real biodiverse forest. And also going inside monocultures and really, going back to myself and trying to see what I feel and why I feel that way. But also working with people and with communities. So for me, it is also part of kind of exploring and understanding this country and understanding people and learning the language. And I'm kind of sorry that I speak in English today. I wish I could speak in the same way in Portuguese. Next time I try. So basically, during the whole period of time, I worked in 2 different art residencies, and I'm going to show you some work from this period. And what showed up is that I started really asking myself question, how can I contribute as an artist? So that whole shock gave me motivation to really start thinking hard and kind of trying to go deeper within myself and asking myself, okay, how can I contribute, but also how can we contribute as a community? And right now, my drive, what drives me at the moment is seeing if, okay, Hugo is coming on this call. Hello, Hugo. So my drive at the moment is basically looking at how we can create physical spaces that are called eternal forest sanctuaries. So I kind of worked out the vision, the formula that basically invites everybody to think, how can we create spaces in nature in collaboration with art and ecology, and that can be protected for 1,000 years. And there are multiple kind of dimensions here. Is the dimension of time and the dimension of working with actual space. And I would like to create 1,000 of the spaces. So let me go back to my slide presentation, if I can. Today is not, the technology is not very collaborative for some reason. Let me just check something. Yes, okay. Okay, so So a lot of you might have seen the film, and I just want to share something here, which for me was kind of important and crucial. I did not know what's going to happen when this film is going to be made. I just made it because I really wanted to understand what is actually happening and how people are thinking and what's behind the lifestyle that we're seeing here, which is conditioned by increasing amount of monocultures as opposed to natural biodiverse forests. So what motivates people? That's what I wanted to understand. So this question really took me on a journey and took me first to film a few people in the area of Goiás. This is where I did my first art residency. And there were simple questions that I asked people about their relationship with forests, but a lot of things came through these conversations. And showing that film to the audiences, physical audiences, but also talking to these people really made me understand that we do have very strong link with nature. We love nature, but there is something there that's kind of, I wouldn't say broken, but a little bit dormant, and maybe we can wake it up. And how can we wake it up? It was a question for me for a long time. So when I was working in the art residency in Goiás, I made a series of artworks, and I work a lot with visual art, with poetry. This work, for example, was made on the paper from the abandoned paper factory. You can see at the top of the book, Campaña de Papel de Goiás. So I'm very interested in kind of working with the materials that are also related to the culture of forests, and in this case, monocultures. This was abandoned paper factory, but somehow the paper was kind of magically preserved so we could actually use it. So you can see some of the examples of the works here. And the whole book was actually printed with a kind of blind type, so there was no ink anymore. This is a really enhanced photo, so you can actually read some poetry from it. And yeah, I was working a lot with the themes of water and kind of boundaries between the villages and the communities, and how people communicate, and what happens when nature interferes and intervenes. So I've been exhibiting this work and going around kind of pretty much the whole country of Portugal with different screenings and different presentations, and really trying to listen to people and really trying to ask people questions like, what do people think, what is our next step, and what we should do about that. So here you can just see some visual works that were created again in the art residency in Goiás. So this artwork, for example, is one of the series that also relates to the film. So I asked people, what is the one word that they can tell me that relates to forest for them? And you can see people were saying casa, amor, verde, equilibrio, saudade. So they found really strong, powerful words. So a lot of love came out of this question, and a lot of love came out of their kind of trying to put a finger on what is forest for them. So when I was kind of finishing the cycle of screenings in Portugal, but also in the UK, I was always facing with one particular question, which was coming up again and again and again, pretty much in every discussion. And probably some of you would not be surprised. And this question is very important, of course. And the question was, what do I personally, as Evgenia, can kind of have in mind and can offer as an alternative to planting monocultures? And it has to be this kind of economic solution. And for a long time, I was trying to think about it. And of course, I'm very much aware about the grassroots movement happening in Portugal. And I know a lot of people who are doing permaculture and agroforest and building communities. And I appreciate and acknowledge all that work. I think that I truly believe that Portugal is going to be the place where regenerative practices and sustainable practices will emerge, and it will be shared with the rest of the world. I still believe here in Portugal we're a little bit behind, but a lot of people trying things out and sharing the knowledge, and it's beautiful work. But then I was facing always with this economic solution that I need to think about. And I decided at some point to just put this question aside and let people who are trying to find solution to answer this question do their work and go in a completely different direction, because it just didn't sit right with me. And that different direction which I've chosen was to actually go and explore deeper our spiritual relationship with nature, which sounds like a big thing, right? Because we come from forest as ancient people. All of our sustainability comes from forest, all of our food, all of our materials and clothes and so on. Excuse me, let me just receive one more participant. Kasia is joining us, which is great. Okay, so I continue my story. So with this, I decided to go a little bit deeper and also go away from this economic question. And then I had this vision, which was something that is different. I had the vision that maybe there could be a physical space in a forest, which is created in collaboration with art and ecology. And that space can be non-productive. And maybe that space can be for our deeper spiritual connection with nature, for our, for going there and seeing if we can be there without necessarily trying to grow food or to produce or take from the trees or harvest the resources. And so what I did is I applied for another art residency in Coruj. It was actually absolutely brilliant opportunity because I was sent this application by several people from different parts of the country because they already knew about the eternal forest. And I applied literally 2 days before the residency was closing. And my proposal was to create inside the area of Montado a limited area, a small area, which we could call a sanctuary. I did not quite know what it meant. I just knew that it has to be protected area, and it has to be biodiverse. And some of you might know that Montado area is the area where usually it's the forest of cork oak, sometimes it's a mixed forest, sometimes there are some animals, so it's kind of semi-agricultural, semi-forested area, but it's productive area, which is very important. And when you speak to the people from the industry, from the cork industry, from various organizations that support and kind of promote cork industry, and you open the leaflets that you see everywhere, of course, everybody says that it's incredibly biodiverse system, which is true. It is biodiverse system. However, if you take and you compare Montado with the ecosystem, which is represented by a true biodiverse forest, even if you go to places like Jerez and so on, it is really different. And in that case, Montado feels, to me personally, much more like a monoculture. And this you really can't say. Well, I could not say that in my conversations with forestry people in Coruj, because of course they don't think so. But in fact, if we just rewind 2000 years back, what happens is, when we start removing from a real forest one by one species that don't serve us humans, so we say, okay, this tree doesn't really produce anything from us, and these kind of plants, they don't serve us for anything, we can't use them, and we only leave these specific trees, plus we move trees. And what does it mean we move trees? We what it means is, well, of course, we can't physically move a tree, but what we can do over a long period of time, over exactly 2,000 years, we can let trees grow in specific location and remove other saplings. So, which means we construct the landscape. So Montado is a completely constructed landscape. And maybe it would be absolutely okay for it to stay like that. But the trouble is that it actually starts getting a lot of problems. And the problems that it's getting is as associated with various insects that are actually killing the trees. Sometimes the trees are dying by themselves, nobody knows why, and there is huge lack of water. So in fact, all the areas of Montado around Spain and Portugal are becoming much more desertified. Anyway, it's a long story, and you probably know the story anyway, but that was my starting point. And that was just one place where I was working. So what happened is when I arrived to the art residency, we managed to identify land which belongs to municipality of Coruș. It's called Herdade dos Conselhos. It's a really, really beautiful piece of land. It's quite big. It's more than 260 hectares. And it is a Montado land in all its sense, but it's after it stopped being productive. So basically it stopped being productive, I believe, 15, 20 years ago. So what you have in this place is you actually have an emergent forest. So you have all these different seeds that somehow ended up there becoming trees, and then you start having strata. You also see a lot of productive trees from the old times of agriculture, which go towards the kind of the wilderness, they go towards the wild side. And the place starts having its own cycles, which are different from when human is intervening with the forest. So I worked there, I spent a lot of time there, pretty much all my summer, going back and forth, and then autumn, and Biennale was opening in September last year. And my process was to try to stay with the land as much as possible, and then to hear what the land will tell me, to hear the story, to hear the dream of the land. And gradually I developed a series of artworks. So this is a manifesto. Eternal Forest Manifesto is a long poem, which now is written in English and Portuguese. It was performed during the opening of the Biennale and then several times after. Manifesto appeared from my kind of I was just trying to be open to what is trying to emerge. I already knew that Eternal Forest Sanctuary is going to be a thing, but I didn't know what kind of shape it will take. And manifesto is for me the kind of the invocation that more or less follows the oral tradition of when the whole community gets together and this manifesto is being read. And this is what we did during the opening of the Biennale. So when people were taken to the forest, they were hearing the manifesto on that walk. And I'm gonna just let you hear a little bit of that if the internet allows us. Okay, let me see. Yes. I start where I begin, from beyond history, from beyond territory, from beyond time. I speak to your presence. I am your history, I am your territory, I am your time, I am your presence. Great discovery, that is you, that is within, that is around, that has no name, that is its own mother, that is its own father, that is its own child, that is its own self, that is without self. So there is a video that's available online, and in the presentation I posted, so you can actually hear the whole thing. And there is also Portuguese version recorded by one of the people who is based in Coruche. This is an artist book, which is also called Eternal Forest Manifesto, which contains the whole vision and the sharing with the community of Coruche. In fact, it also has an invitation to the community of Coruche to step into the circle of guardians. And I'm going to explain in a little bit what it is, a circle of guardians, and why it is important. I also created Eternal Forest Experience. So I was thinking how to take people to the forest in a way that is different from just going to the forest normally and, you know, chatting to your friends or going on the bicycle or having a picnic. So I was trying to find this new way of doing that. And I think that right now, the way we go and connect with nature is nowhere near enough. I think we must find new ways, and we must reinvent these ways of going to nature. And how do we, you know, how do we walk through the paths? How do we connect with the trees? How do we look? With what kind of senses are we engaging? So right now I'm developing a series of these experiences, taking people on silent walks. Sometimes these walks are up to 2 hours of silence. And then I just gently guide people through with poetry and through art. And we always do some contemplative practice, which allows us to open and kind of drop our human senses and to become a bit more aware how forest might feel, think, hear, see. So kind of step into the shoes, the roots of the forest. So this is just some images from the Eternal Forest Experience in Coruche. And you can see how gorgeous this whole area is. It's really beautiful. It's really inspiring. And I have to say that once you come to a land like this, it really gives you so much information and wisdom and knowledge. And it basically feeds into the idea of what a human experience can be, and how the forest can be enhanced by our presence and by our contribution. This is a small version of manifesto that I usually carry with me and read during the experiences. Okay. So I'm going to stop this for a second, and I'm going to go back to the video. So I would like to welcome everybody who just joined a little bit later. So let me try to kind of verbalize and explain a little bit the vision of what is Eternal Forest Sanctuary, kind of what is it, how does it sound, how does it feel, what kind of land it is, and so on. So you probably already kind of understand that I'm talking about a physical space that is created for enhanced biodiversity. So we're talking about possibility of creating long-term real forest ecosystem, and protecting it during 1,000 years. So we're talking about challenging ourselves as human society to think in much longer periods of time. Another aspect of Eternal Forest Sanctuary is this idea that we go there for quite a different reason that we could go to a garden or a place where we maybe harvest resources. So we don't harvest anything from Eternal Forest, we only give to it. We help it to emerge. If it needs regeneration, we help it to regenerate. If it needs protection, we help to protect it, and we look after it as a community. My idea is that each of the 1,000 Eternal Forest Sanctuaries that are bound to appear in the world will have its own community as a guardian. This community will be responsible for its emergence partially, but also for its support and making sure this place is protected, and this place has, it's on the map as a protected area. But community also plays a role of making this place alive. I believe that forests need people. I believe that forests are actually inviting us to go and explore new ways of being in the forest. And this is up to us to see, what are these new ways. And just to kind of try to imagine different activities that kind of could happen. Imagine we could do really beautiful contemplative practice. Imagine you could go to this place even every day if it's really near to your house, or you could go there every weekend and just stay there in silence, in contemplation, and give yourself time and space to really look around and to absorb and to learn this wisdom that's always available. It's always there, but it's always changing, because of course in a ecosystem that is constantly evolving, that is rich, that is biodiverse, we can also see cycles of nature much better than we see in a place that's kind of highly managed and just is there for production. Of course, we see cycles as well, but it's slightly different. And then it's aesthetic experience, which I believe is incredibly important for all of us, whether you're an artist or whether you're a programmer or engineer, or I don't know, it doesn't really matter. We're incredibly aesthetic beings. And I believe that just simple thing of having really rich strata is already doing something to our psyche, to our consciousness. That kind of richness of biodiversity is making us richer. Apart from the air that it's giving us, it's also all these different sensorial experiences that we are getting. And I'm sure a lot of you already know that there is a huge amount of practices that are emerging along with necessity to protect forests. So for example, there is like a whole organized movement in Japan, but it's now also in Europe, for forest bathing and forest guides. So I think I have multiple examples in my life, people who connect to me and say, we really like the project, we would like to connect because we are training to be forest guides. And so we would like to bring people to forests, but sometimes we actually can't find those forests so near us. And I'm just going to share with you a little story. I had an experience. There was a beautiful forest experience in Sintra, and I was invited, and I went with a lady who is biologist, and it was all really beautiful. It was 2-hour experience. She had great deal of knowledge about the plants, and she was so capable of sharing it in such a beautiful way, which was not technical. It was incredibly inspirational. And so we went on this walk. There is a bit of silence, and there was a bit of sitting and meditation. Everything was there. There was one thing that was missing in Sintra, and it was really shocking. And what was missing was silence. So we went on a weekend, and there were plenty of people. So there were runners on these days, there were cyclists, there were motorcyclists, there were people with dogs. There were simply people who were not so much aware about what we are trying to do. They were going by and saying, bon dia, and then there were, so it was actually overwhelming. And she was a bit upset because she wanted to give us that beautiful experience, and it just didn't happen in the way that she imagined. So to kind of summarize, I think the eternal forest sanctuaries are also places that are removed from urban noise and from kind of the noise that we humans produce quite a lot. And maybe it's a place where we can encounter silence, and maybe it is a necessary thing for us in life to have that place in nature where we don't have tractors, we don't have machinery, we don't have dogs barking and kind of cockerels. It doesn't remind us about this kind of everyday life. It is designed with art. I'm not necessarily the artist who is going to design, all of them. I would love to design a few of these sanctuaries. I would love to collaborate with other artists and to invite them to think, how can we design those places in a beautiful collaborative way? How can we encourage each other to think together with the forest cycles, and also in the sense of how can we create art thinking 1,000 years, not just to protect it, but how can art be created in a way that we already thinking in this kind of big cycles. But then, of course, we will require a whole circle of collaborators who understand biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem restoration if it's necessary, and who can give us legal advice and how this can be done. So I do believe truly that Eternal Forest Sanctuary project has to have this very strong collaborative effort, but also the glue, the how to bring it to life is the community. And community doesn't play the role of only guardians. So when the sanctuary is created, okay, we can be guardians and we can go there, we can protect it. I do believe that community plays huge role in actually creating the sanctuary, which means not only finding the land and creating the physical space, but getting together as a community and thinking, what kind of organizational structure do we need in the long term to support such a project? What kind of partners do we need? What kind of stakeholders are around our area who can actually help us and who can participate in this process? How do we get funding for this? And how can we create like a whole container to be able to carry on this work in the long term? And I mean, no pressure, but we are talking about community. I don't mean community at a given moment of time only, which is like, let's say we want to create something during 5-10 years and see, you know, how it emerges and bring more people in. I'm talking about how can, with the community, for example, that we have in Torres Vedras, how can we bring people of different ages, so it's intergenerational, but also encourage the younger ones to slowly step in and carry on the work that the older ones are doing, because ultimately in 30-50 years time and so on, they will be the ones carrying this culture and passing on, you know, this knowledge and the wisdom and kind of teaching others and bringing others in. So I spoke about time aspect, I spoke about collaborative aspect. My hope is that with such organizations as emerge, for example, specifically in Torres Vedras, we could really work beautifully with artists, but also, you know, activating communities and creating events and really bringing people in, because I do believe it has to be, it is the question of regularity, whether we are doing like a working group that, you know, we carry on doing this, or we actually inviting people to go to this place. And can we invite different artists to create different experiences and different artworks, be it temporary or permanent, to, you know, to let people experience forest from different perspectives. I believe that art can be huge inspiration, but also poetry and music and so on. And so at this point, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. At this point, what I would like to do is share with you here one slide. This one. So it's a call to action. It's a very, very kind of briefly described kind of list that by no means is final. It's just my idea of what I think might be needed to bring this dream closer to the reality in any kind of location. So we're talking about possibility of creating 1,000 eternal forest sanctuaries and protecting them for 1,000 years. And I would love to see one existing in Torres Vedras. So I believe it can be done through a regular working group. We can call it a circle, we can call it a team, but it's definitely some kind of dedicated time. And actually it doesn't say here, but I'm just going to pronounce that and then I'm going to update this presentation. I believe that I know it does say 6 months. So my invitation is to see if people would be interested to actually step in and commit during 6 months to do some of these things that are on this list, to look for the land. Maybe there is land available, maybe there is private land, or maybe somebody is actually happy to donate land for such a project. What does it need to be? What kind of organization needs to be to support such a project in the long run? How do we go about funding and fundraising? And of course, the legal advice is incredibly important because we're talking about long-term protection. I believe there are already plenty of organizations, companies, and possible partners. We just need to kind of map them and see who would be interested and pitch this idea and bring these people on board. And then this group could perhaps develop a timeline and a plan for the next 12 months after the 6 months. So then we can bring new people into the project to see if we can collaborate. And of course, we need to communicate it with larger communities, community in Torres Vedras. We probably will have to get some advice from ecologists and forest experts and so on. And one last thing I wanted to mention, which is very important at this point, is the model. So here I have be part of creating replicable model. The model is something that I'm thinking a lot about, and I had a couple of conversations recently with people who would like to help Eternal Forest on more like global scale. And perhaps it's not one model how it's built, but maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3 different models. But imagine if we had a recipe that we could share with any community in the world, how to create such a space. You know, what kind of steps you need to follow, how to bring community together, what kind of facilitation, what kind of practices need to be happening in the room, and how to go together over a long period of time. The reason why I'm thinking model is because of the scale of the project. 1,000 sanctuaries is not possible for one person or even one team to create all of them. I'm now working with my community in Será, and I already have a few people who are interested, and we currently kind of breaking down the vision into more practical steps, and it will be published soon, and I would be more than happy to share this with you. So here we have a lot of interest, and we are currently trying to see, you know, what is this group that will stick together and would be able to perhaps go forward and commit for 6 months. And if we now expand to possibility of 2 different locations, which in fact are very close to each other, is Ericeira and Torres Vedras, we could say that what if we launched these 2 groups simultaneously, and we could then share the learnings, the knowledge, the wisdom, the findings, the mistakes, the, you know, all the learnings that we do in such a project. It's something very new. And then perhaps we could, based on these learnings, see if we could extract some basic points that any community could follow. And so having a model, I believe, could really facilitate that work in a longer run. And it's just about, for me, it's just about documenting it really well, but also having people aware about what we're trying to do. So, I think I shared with you more or less everything I wanted to share. I'm going to open to discussion. I would love to invite you to maybe, shall we do like around a circle of questions? And maybe if we do clarifying questions first, if there is anything unclear, or if you have a specific question about the what or the how, and then maybe we could do like a mini sharing, brainstorm ideas, or maybe you already know some land, or maybe you already have an idea who could be the partner for such a project in Torres Vedras. I'm going to copy paste this last slide for you in the chat, so you can actually copy the links and then share them later. And with this, I stop, and I would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Evgenia, for the detailed explanation about the Eternal Forest Sanctuary project. For the ones who came across this conversation late, I'm George from Emerge, Daniela from Emerge. We are connecting this project creating forces with Evgenia to happen here in Torres Vedras. So it's a pleasure to have you all joining this conversation, to know what is possible to do with this group, if you are all interested to work together or not. We're going to discover it next. But mainly, I think it's a huge importance to find somehow a clear idea where this forest can here in Torres Vedras, near the city. We have some ideas, but we would like much to hear from you all. Maybe we can start for passing the word to Hugo. Maybe if you can tell. I think you have a microphone. I'm going to mute my mic. Okay.
Thank you very much. Hi, George. Olá, Evgenia. For me, it's a pleasure to be here, listening to you, all these informations, quite of detailed informations. Although I have some questions about the project. For me, apparently, I started reading and being in contact since two weeks ago, and soon my big question is, how can I make part of the concept, because I don't feel myself with skills to contribute in a legal perspective or others like this, or communications. But I'm interested in the ecological part, in the community part of the defensors of the forest and the nature itself. So I'm here to learn more with you and to try to get some space to contribute. But my big question for now is, it's because it seems very conceptual, the name of the project, the 1,000 forests. So for me, and I believe that for a majority part of people that is coming to the group, to the project, the basic questions, or the most fast questions coming, is how can we start doing something, or in the practical way of joining, helping with ants, planting, or making contacts, which kind of contacts are already being done with the councils, or with other groups, or I don't know, maybe schools or universities. These are basically the questions I would like to put to you. Okay.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I think there's quite a few questions in you asked right now, so I'm going to try to answer just a couple of them, and maybe they're connected as well. So first of all, the list of the, you know, the big list with the land and legal, of course, if I said for myself, I'm technically not capable of reply to the legal, but I know people in Portugal who can give us legal advice, no problem. I have no idea what kind of organization we need or the project needs, but I know who understands organizations and pretty much every Portuguese person also knows how to create an association. So that's like the basic level, but maybe it's not association. In terms of how to approach that, if we don't have like a hands-on skill, like I'm not an ecologist, yeah, I'm just an artist. And actually for me it's really hard, because most of these things I just have an idea that that's what needs to be done. But of course, I also understand that without a good team, or without people who are interested and who can get together in the room and say, okay, let's just map it first of all. I would not like to do it by myself, not because I don't want, it's because I would love to do it with others. That's my way of working, that's my way of collaborating. So your question about how can you make part of this project, now it sounds very abstract and conceptual and kind of big, without being any of, you know, these people that you can relate to on the list and having specific skills. Simply, I would say we can have series of meetings, series of discussions where we map everything that needs to be done, which means that me, Evgenia, I can go and I can get legal advice, for example, and you, Hugo, you could go and you can actually talk to a whole bunch of people who have idea where to find land or start looking, or maybe it's a group of people, 2-3 people who can start looking for the land. If we're talking about the partners or stakeholders who are in the area who might need to get involved, like schools and universities and municipality and whoever else, then somebody could sit down and map all these different possibilities, practically speaking, bring it to the next meeting, present to all of us, and then we sit and say, wait, this person, this person, this person, this person is missing. We need to put them inside and we need to consult them. So I believe that the role of this first circle, the most basic kind of working circle that kickstarts the whole thing, is not to execute any of this, you know, hard questions that are specialists really, but more get organized and create container for us to bring consultants in and other collaborators. So I believe this is the real function of, let's say if we here 8 people or 10 people, however many we are, 9 people right now on this call, let's say we created a group. We would have maybe 5-6 meetings over the course of several months. And then by the time we arrive to the end, we will have all these questions answered, not by ourselves, but by bringing people who fill in the blanks. So that's answering first question. I hope I managed to answer it. And how can we start doing something practical? So this, first of all, this is practical. So saying, okay, how many meetings and how often do we gather? And in a facilitated way, how do we emerge this project? Which means all the container that needs to be prepared. But also it doesn't always mean that we have to be in the room talking. Maybe all of us, we decide that the next thing, if we were able to do it right now, is actually to go and visit 2-3 forests around Torres Vedras, and as a group go and enjoy it. We could have a beautiful experience, and after that we could also be in the forest and look at it and think, well, could it be the place? Could we feel into that place? Is this place calling us to become a sanctuary? And then potentially, let's put this place on the map. Let's look, what is this land? Who does it belong to? Can this person participate in this project or donate the land? Or can we buy the land? And where do we get the money? And then the whole thing starts evolving itself, because I believe that in this particular project, land is really crucial. It's really like a driver for everything else. And it can actually give us a lot of indication what are the priorities and where to go next. So the way we're starting in Ericeira, for example, hopefully after, you know, getting a circle of people who are interested, now it's a bit difficult because it's not so easy to explore possibilities of the land concretely. But we already have starting to map the places we like, because people go, like they drive out and go to valley, and then they call me and say, Evgenia, we found this beautiful magical valley. Okay, let's put it on the map. let's look at the zoning, let's look at the municipality, who it belongs to, how many people, the owners, and then when we can, let's go and talk to these people and start kind of making things a bit more concrete. Yeah, and then of course schools, universities, yeah, for sure. I think there we just need to kind of think how to open the discussion with them and how to engage them in the discussion. It could be also kind of multiple creative ways of doing that, not necessarily just going and speaking to people, but all right, let's get them into the forest. Let's do like a mini workshop, and maybe somewhere in the end, we tell them, you know, what we're trying to do, and they would be like, oh, okay, that's curious, I'm interested, like how can I get involved, how can I help? So there are kind of many ways. I mean, this is the most direct way, I believe. Like I'm coming here and saying, guys, I have a vision, I have a dream, I would like to share it with you. What does this dream require to be your dream, and how can you get involved? This is the most direct way, but it's not going to work with everybody. With some other kind of types of audiences, we need to think creatively how we can kind of engage them. Yeah, sorry, I talked too long.
So having a word here, it's essentially, it is not important where you came from and what you do in your life. What is important here is how somehow you can contribute, doing something that is or not is related with art. It can be simply a path in the woods, where in the forest, where you give to people your path and guide people into your vision about the forest. It can be simply as that. Also, Evgenia told a very clear and practical thing like workshop. It can be about drawing. It can be about a yoga class, for example. It can be everything you can fit in an open space like a forest to relate with it, but also in the meantime, it is important to have in our minds that silence, as Evgenia said before, it's quite important, because the human silence, because the forest has its own sounds and ecosystem that grows through the sound, and this has a big connection with us, the sound of forest and ourselves. So it is important here. We have, for example, Isabel, which is an anthropologist that can help in other ways and think in this eternal forest sanctuary we are creating here in Torres Vedras in a completely different way that an art person like Sandra Roda thinks. So this is very positive. So to be clear here, everyone is important for the project. So I'm going to pass the word for Sandra Roda to explain how she thinks she can contribute with ideas or actions or whatever. Okay, you can begin, Sandra.
Okay. Well, what can I say? We always need to start with a group. Okay, it doesn't, as Evgenia said, it doesn't matter who you are or what we do. We have a lot of people around us that can help. So we just have to believe in something, and then we make others believe in the project also. So that's the, if you don't believe in that, and if you are afraid, so you will not make a part, and somehow in some part of the time you will go away because it doesn't, you don't feel it. Okay, so if you feel it, you have all the skills that you need. So we need a land, we need to define a project and all the methodologies and all the things that it's necessary, and that's it to start. There's nothing else. It's very technical in the beginning. Okay, so in the future, when all the things are arranged, if it happens, of course, I hope so, we have to understand something when we create a sanctuary, or this idea of collective spaces. It is it's a collective knowledge. Okay, so all the knowledge are implicated, and they all contribute somehow. Let me see if I can explain. It's necessary somehow. A landscape architect, for example, because I don't understand nothing about biodiversity. Okay, I know it's necessary to preserve, I believe it, but I don't understand it how. So landscape architect, a biologist also, and the people that always lived in the land, they have another kind of knowledge. Okay, so we are in this kind of projects, Evgenia, you have a lot of levels. Okay, so it's very complex, but if you are open, if the project is open to the community, okay, the community will preserve something where the knowledge of where my knowledge is valid. How can I personally can contribute with my work already? I already work with biodiversity, with sustainable development, with natural heritage. So it's about this also. I already work this idea of using arts to connect with nature, to learn how to see. Okay, so that's part that I already have, and I can give in some part of the project. Okay, but I can give also another things. I can help with my contacts, with my friends. I can go to the field to talk with people. Something that I like to do. I like to hear stories. And with time, all of us will have ideas and proposals to make. And I see always this like something that is growing until some moment that must stop, but I think it is. I have nothing else to say, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's incredibly interesting to see how you respond, and I really appreciate, and it feels like there are so many steps to take, but there are steps that are more close to us, and I think talking to people. So one thing I wanted to mention is talking to people and kind of engaging people into the conversation. It's incredibly important on personal level, because we all have our circles. I don't even live in Torres Vedras. I have a few friends. I have one of my main collaborators, David Negrau. He works with me, but we see each other online all the time. But he loves forest, and I'm sure if we all start looking at our circle and start even exploring this idea with our friends, with our family, and see what they say and see how they would see that and how they could contribute, I think even that is already a lot. And somehow, like, I don't want to say log in these conversations, but somehow, like, you know, if you have a specific person who says, yes, I want to help, how can I help, how can I be part of it, I'm hoping that we can have further discussions and we can decide even today, when do we have our next, you know, get together online, and maybe we discuss like one thing, we have one specific conversation, and it's much more practical and something that we could all prepare a little bit and think about, and maybe bring one extra or two extra people on this call. So today is just really opening the door. I feel more like that. More questions?
Can I ask one more?
Yes.
There is already the definition or the direction of starting in one specific local, like Ericeira or near Ericeira, between Torres Vedras, or it is open to any local in Portugal or outside. How you perspective this starting movement
So
of implementing?
Yeah, so it's really good question. The reason why I want to do it in Ericeira is because I live here and I have good relationship with people, like close relationship. I have friends. It's a loose community. It's not very, how to say, well, loose community, I'm saying it's not an intentional community living together. It's just people that are spread around. And I don't know if you know, but we launched the Ericeira Creative Hub. When we moved to Ericeira, there is actually a group, if you're interested. Right now is a bit silent, but the Ericeira Creative Hub is supposed to kind of generate our own creative events, not only for artists and artisans, but any kind of creativity and learning, because I'm very much interested in lifelong learning. So Ericeira Creative Hub is more or less the basis on which I build and invite people from there, but then other people join. And this is the reason why Ericeira. Torres Vedras is the reason. There are many reasons for that as well. I feel myself kind of aligned with the movement that's happening in Torres Vedras. I already know a few projects, and I actually just get connected with more projects somehow. And of course, for me, it's also very important that Daniela and George are there, and the merge is based in Torres Vedras, and there is also Casa Azul. So for me, the link with art and artists is incredibly important. I also feel that it's not like art just has to play a role in this project because I'm an artist, but I feel that there is a huge potential, like really uncovered potential in collaborative practices within the arts. And I think as artists, we are also learning to redefine those things right now. So my hope is that more artists will actually get involved and jump on board. Some of them already have practice that is completely aligned, and it's just about making those links. So I would love very much to see artists who are based in and around Torres Vedras really, you know, stepping in and collaborating. But if we go, and then for me, it's very important that these two locations are actually quite close to each other, because that means that physically we can even go and visit. So it could be like, imagine once in a month or once in 3 months, we have this really beautiful event that brings both communities together, and we go to one or another location. And I think it could be incredibly enriching. But if we go completely out on a bigger perspective, I'm not limiting. So I'm trying to see in an expanded way what the project wants. It's not what I want, it's what the project wants and where it wants to be. And I already have a few points on the map in Portugal. I can even name you the places where I had interest from. So for example, Herdade do Freixo do Meio is an organic cooperative, is a massive land, is really beautiful, the work that they do, and completely productive. And this kind of, from first perspective, goes against the vision of Eternal Forest Sanctuary. Why would we do something in a productive land? However, because the land is so big, and it's a completely established project with a very, very good community around it, and people really supporting this work and taking it forward, there was a conversation, and of course I would love to visit as soon as I can, that in the part of their land, in the silent part of the land, which is really far away from the main production, we can actually create Eternal Forest Sanctuary based, it will be based more around actually ancient trees. They have several clusters of very ancient trees in the land, and Alfredo, who is heading the project, he has very, very, very strong connection, spiritual connection with the trees. And this is just one example, but there are a lot. I'm also looking a lot at national parks. It's a long shot. I'm talking to people in Sintra, and I'm trying to get in touch with Jerez. I'm talking to Rewilding Portugal project, which is in Coa Valley. And in fact, they are trying to emerge, depending on European funding, they're trying to emerge a land art festival, which will be consecutive years. And they already told me they have big interest to create maybe not even one Eternal Forest Sanctuary, but 2 or 3 to connect them, because it's a huge stretch of land, and so on. So there is, and then of course there are people who are kind of telling me that they should be done in Brazil and Japan and Russia and UK. And right now there is going to be a team of people, separate team of people, 2 or 3 people at the beginning, who are going to drive the Eternal Forest Global, so who are going to help to really bring this project, elevate this project on an international level, and to connect the dots and the network of partnerships. And we are hoping that in about 1 month, we're going to launch website, which is the main communication channel for all the projects. And my vision, just to summarize everything in brief, that I'm hoping to really see, like in my lifetime, a living, breathing network of people and places, so that our wisdom starts moving around, and we start sharing this knowledge, and we start learning from each other, from different projects, from how people create their sanctuaries. Because the way we imagine this now, maybe in 30 years, things will shift so much that people will do it in a completely different way. And for the future, it will make much more sense. So I'm kind of trusting here the bigger consciousness, and the contribution from people from also different cultures. So we have one question. 1 second. Yes, of course.
Can I speak now, because I have to go to another meeting?
Please.
So many thanks, Evgenia. I just want to say that I really believe in your work and your intentions and in this project, of course. And another thing is, I really believe in deep ecology and the relation with arts and culture too, of course, because I believe in the power of arts and culture to transform the mentality of people, besides looking to nature as an object or as a productized field. Concretely in Torres Vedras, for instance, I think George and Danielle and the people who knows Torres Vedras, I think the most obvious place to start doing something is near the Cucus. It's a forest, a thermal venue, but it has a big, not so big, but a forest and a valley, and another wood that is more or less primitive and with autochthonous trees, and that many people does not know this place. It's like a secret place that I know with my kids. I go around there many times, but I can make you a visit and bring you to there. It's a very beautiful place. So I think that as Evgenia told, I think one of the biggest problems nowadays, before and after the pandemic, is to make and sustain a community around these thematics. In Torres Vedras, because I lived there for many time ago, and I've been working more in the political activism, and problems with the environment and the use of toxic herbicides and so on. But as you know, and Evgenia, I think it knows, of course, the David Negrão and Salomé Abreu and the new cooperative de Cardo, and we have made a little event near the castle during 15 days with many talks and many movies and many vegetarian meals, etc., which have grouped some people that I think it's very interested in this, and of course they could participate. I'm really wondering also about the global network, because it's very important. And, in my own approach to this connection between arts and deep ecology, I've been working with a friend of mine, a photographer, Evgenia Martins. We have been made the work. I don't know if you saw it, but we have been making nowadays. We are starting a new project, but there are two done before. The one is called Urupe. Urupe, it's words from Yanomami tribe in Brazil that has to do with connection between the image and the representation of nature. And the more recent project, it was called Fuses. Fuses is a Greek word for nature. And I can send you the website. We have started to make an exhibition in Galeria de França in Lisbon, and it will be done a new one in the Appleton Gallery in Lisbon. But you can see the website and you can read my text. It's about this connection between deep ecology and how can art in such a way, and it's of course it's like a paradox, to represent nature by himself, not by the human eyes, by himself. So I can show you this process, and nowadays I'm working with a choreographer called Marta Tomei, and we are making a dance project with this kind of principles also. And maybe, I don't know if in Torres Vedras maybe emerge once, I think it would be a nice idea to create, organize an exhibition, collective exhibition with this kind of projects and more, maybe making an open call, and to do some complementary activities connected with the exhibition, like paths, walking to the nature and so on, workshops, and so I think we have some possibilities to make it into Torres Vedras with a group of people interested in this. And if you don't matter, I will leave the meeting for another one. Okay.
And thank you so much for participating. Bye-bye. And we're gonna send an email around to everybody afterwards. Thank you so much for being with us. I can
send you also these ideas in text.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Rui, for being with us.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao. I think Sandra wanted to say something. Sandra, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. Well, first thing. Do your idea about a sanctuary is something that untouchable? Okay. The idea is something that it's where people collaborate, but don't be there. It's not a transition community. Okay. It's a secret space. Okay, that's the idea.
So you're asking the question if this is a place where we can grow things, or is it just a place where we could go and kind of enjoy and help support that forest? Yes, it's the second. So in principle, there is a possibility, and I don't exclude that possibility, that some of the eternal forest sanctuaries can emerge in the place or in the land where communities already exist or can exist. So let's say if in Torres Vedras or in Riseira, in fact, we are thinking about community in Riseira, we create like a cluster, ecological community, creative community, and you have a cluster which there is a cluster of houses living on the land with shared space and shared green space. in such a place can be eternal forest, giving all the conditions for it. So if the land is big enough that people can have their own gardens and can have their own mini production of what they need to grow, but also has a place for the community to enjoy, and maybe even community wants to open for larger community and bring people in, that is a sanctuary. And the sanctuary is really a sanctuary, it's untouchable. So I'm going to try to actually, I'm going to start writing a little bit. I already have a lot of materials about the historical sacred groves, and there was one call, I think about 2 weeks ago in Ericeira, for group in Ericeira, where I shared this. So as somebody said on this call, Eternal Forest Sanctuary is not meant to be a religious place belonging to any kind of religion. I think it's more tapping into deep ecology, exactly like Rui said, talking about our, how do we find that connection with nature? How do we discover that depth that we all have or used to have and kind of is a little bit asleep? So in that sense, it is really kind of protected sacred space. And in the ancient times, historically, we really were not allowed to harvest, hunt those places. In some places in China and other places, it was complete prohibition. Of course, prohibition came after culture started already encroaching on these places. You can imagine, because if people have awareness and consciousness that in nature, in our environment, in our different kind of zones where human beings are, there are certain places where we harvest, we grow, and some places we just let nature be. That's fine. And as soon as you start having problems in culture understanding why it's important, then you start having prohibition, which means rules come after the culture kind of breaks apart and starts having kind of the holes. But yes, in principle, there is a possibility, and I'm looking at such cases in the world and in Portugal. If a set community would like to have their own sanctuary, it's absolutely possible, but then they need to adhere to the vision and they need to follow, the guidelines and make sure that they can support it. And I can even tell you more that there are mechanisms that are going to come in place very soon, specifically in Portugal, where these communities and organizations would be able to put some part of the land in the foundation and protect it in perpetuity. And there are people who are working on this. There is a foundation that's being organized right now in Portugal called Terra. I'm working with them. And my hope that at least first sanctuaries can be experiencing help from them, so they can help us to do things in a bit more fast and organized way.
But because I was asking this because, for example, in the Natura network, in our forests, we are debating the equilibrium between the spaces that people can be there, can do anything, or there's a possibility to have some sustainable agriculture, agro production, etc. Because sometimes this proximity between people and the sacred space, okay, connects strongly and helps to protect that space when we have some part of the space that we can work there and have some basic needs satisfied by that. So I was asking this, and the other thing that I want to ask about your idea, how you imagine if you are trying to create a network of this kind of spaces in our world of tourism. What do you think when this network will be discovered, and how to deal with tourism? What's your idea about this?
So it's a really good question, and I think there is both problem there and a huge opportunity, because of course if there is a circle of guardians that's responsible for protection of the space and actually managing the space, because ultimately a circle gets a lot of responsibility for making sure what's happening there and how it's protected. And I think tourism can be ethical tourism, and let's say conscious tourism can be huge help, in fact, to help support such spaces. Also, there are gradually and very fast emerging lots kind of different kinds of tourism, and people. There is also a whole audience, you know, sector of audience that are interested in having different kind of experience when they go as a tourist to a specific country. They don't want to, you know, they don't want to go to all the usual tourist attractions. They want to go to wild places. They want to experience them. And of course, there is a fine line there. So I have a friend who is writing a lot on ecology. He has his own land in UK. So this extreme side, he believes that no one should go to his land because he wants it to be a wild place, and he even says that he doesn't go to all the corners of his land because he scares wildlife. In fact, there is research, and it is true that we scare wildlife. Our cats and dogs scare wildlife. So, for example, Eternal Forest Sanctuary, from my perspective, and you know, I would love to hear experts, there's absolutely no go for cats and dogs. I mean, it's not really a place to walk your dog.
Yeah.
However, when I'm doing my experiences right now, we had an exception. And one of my friends brought a dog. This dog is trained to be like a guard dog. So she could go anywhere. She can go into a museum. In fact, there is a passport she has. This dog behaved better than some of the humans who still tried to talk, you know, and to say something. So it was really interesting. So, I mean, there's always ideal how we want things to be. And there's always situations that we have to deal with and contact.
It's something
but I believe tourism
that we should have in mind when we are designing a model for to manage the space. Okay, what we need and what you want. You want. Okay.
I would just like to say two things. One is that we don't have much time. It's like 13 minutes ago. But I would like to kind of make a question, because I'm sorry, but I get a little confused about what I thought it would be, and then when you said something about silence and hearing you about the whole project, I'm a bit confused, because I think that you want to build the sanctuary some kind of place like for meditation or just to connect with nature, and I get that, but at some time I don't understand how we can, or how people or artists or people can create from it. I'm not being very clear, but the thing that crossed my mind when you talked about silence was children, because children are not designed to be in silence, not quiet. And they are people too, they are community. So I was thinking that, well, we have to think about older people and children. And for example, animals. Dogs are animals, and then, well, people have them. And I was thinking about this place like a place to be lived, but then, and at the same time, it makes sense to me that yes, it's a sanctuary, okay, it's a place to be quiet, but then you kind of need some rules just to have this sacred place. And how does a network of people from different areas can build from it? I found it a bit confused in that sense, what it is. I researched a bit about that fresh that you talked, because I already heard about it, and I know it's a place it has a store, it's a place where they build things, they create, they have agriculture, people living, well, it's an association, uma cooperativa. I don't know how to say in English. But the thing is that I think I was a bit confused about that. How can we in different areas then participate, beginning with what Hugo said, because I think what you need is some kind of legal laws, so the place is not touched, but then I'm sorry, I don't know if I was clear enough.
Yeah, so there are, so you're asking, let me just try to get it right. You're asking that it feels to you that there is some conflict of interest in the way how, like, how is the sanctuary which invites certain modes of behavior, and then we have children who are running in and shouting and behaving loudly. I mean, it's really interesting. So just to, because it's a lot of different examples you made, so I'll try to address some of them. And actually I would like, if other people have way to respond to that, I would love to hear you. Maybe I just respond to this one. So children are interesting because children, they copy a lot what they hear and see around themselves. And it's really interesting to observe what happens when you offer them a specific situation. And of course, at first they're like, oh, you know, I have to like I have to be silent, or maybe not necessarily, or maybe we don't kind of invite children to be necessarily silent. Maybe we just offer them some kind of activity that invites them into that, to explore this mode of behavior. You know, maybe they just go and they have to collect some things and create some mini thing on the ground, like a mini artwork or something, some kind of little intervention. And children, they're very quick. They very quickly get entrained into what they hear around and how the place is. And I truly believe that the place itself has magic in terms of affecting us. So there are lots of places where we walk in and we would never really consider kind of behaving in a loud way or kind of shouting, or like, okay, when it's very simple example and it's a religious example, but when we go into a temple in any kind of part of the world, most of the times we behave very, you know, in a very, we talk in a very subdued voice, if we talk at all. And we wouldn't bring our dog there, for sure not. And some places you take your shoes off. And in some places you have a small ceremony where you have to wash your hands and then you go inside. In some places you ring the bell and you go inside. So there's always this moment when you pass the boundary, you pass the kind of, it's kind of portal, visible or invisible. And I did not speak so much about it because it's a really different subject, but I was thinking that would be interesting to consider, what if Eternal Forest Sanctuary slowly and gradually developed through people's participation, its own kind of ceremony, its own kind of rituals. It could be one or two very simple things, but something that allows us to know that we stepped into something that's different and we kind of left our normal, you know, big social selves, you know, outside of this portal. And this is just that special time when we do something differently, which I think invites people and requires them to really reconsider their modes of behavior. And I truly believe that a lot of this comes from our kind of wiring, and you know how our behavior is the habits that we develop, and we could also re-entrain ourselves into different kind of habits. I mean, the question of dogs, it's a very separate question. I can bring next time really important research that's coming out now, that even that dogs are on the leashes and they don't kill wildlife necessarily, they scare it. So if you continuously have people walking the dogs in the same place, wildlife just goes somewhere far away where it can find quite a place. I mean, you'll still have birds, but you won't have, you know, these kind of small animals and birds. For example, in Tapada de Mafra, you can't go with a dog, and there is a reason. There's good reason for that, because they have they have medium-sized mammals. So you would never imagine bringing a dog inside Tapada.
But there are places where there are savage dogs.
Yes.
It's just a joke, sorry. But yeah, I get it. So you have just a list of, let's say, rules to go to the place and to be there so that people can visit. That's the idea.
More or less. I mean, we would ask people for sure to leave bicycles and like moving mechanisms outside, like unless, you know, if there is like a flat space where somebody with a wheelchair can enter and it's not dangerous for them and they can just enter and be, you know, for some time there by themselves, it's great. But sometimes there is no, like you remember in Cluj, there was just no capacity for that. There was one woman who wanted to walk and she had to be supported, and people loved to walk. And once she went through that experience, she loved it, but it required somebody being there for her, helping her, and it was not so easy because terrain, yeah, real forest is a real forest. It's not necessarily a park. Okay. Sandra is saying first model and objectives. So Sandra, do you mean that it would be good to kind of transcribe model and objectives of the project? Okay, she has to go. I think we're running out of time.
Sorry, because I have to go. No, because Daniela was talking about rules, okay? And I think rules come after we understand what we want. Objects, okay? So you are putting the horse in front of or after the car, okay? I think it's my vision. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I was feeling. If we want a century with everybody where local people feel that it's something to protect and opens some, for example, for artists or artist events or just to meditation or just or several things that happen along the year. That's the way it works, the Santuários, okay? There are moments and the rest of the time is in the empty, okay? It's something sacred. It's something that we see outside, okay? That's the term sanctuary. It's something religious. It's something that we protect. It's something in what we believe, but we don't necessarily see. We don't need to be aware of everything that's happening in that space, okay? So we have, I think it's my vision of sanctuary, okay? It's for everybody and for everything, okay? And there's the parts that and it's something between in light and dark. Sometimes we know what's happening there and we make part, and sometimes we don't. But we know that that exists, that something is happening and probably good, or okay. That's my idea. That's why I was saying this. I have to go.
Thank you so much. Please leave your emails in the chat if we don't have, if you didn't register and come to this event.
It's important.
Please leave your email. Okay. If you registered, then we have your emails, and we're going to think how to continue. I'm going to send you the recording. I'm going to send you some materials, and then we're going to decide how we can continue. And thank you so much for being here today. It's wonderful. If you have more questions, just type it in the chat, or you can send directly. So and if you want to talk to me directly on Zoom, Meet, go for a walk, I'm available.
Okay. Now I have to finish a work about Agenda 21, so I have to work now.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. So we're going to...
Elisa told me that she was driving, so she cannot speak or participate now, but she is listening.
Yeah, maybe it is a good idea to hear some words from Isabel.
I would love to.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Isabel.
First of all, I would like to thank Daniela and George and Eugenia for bringing this together. I'm loving to be a part of this meeting. Then I have something that I want to say. We always think of a sanctuary as something sacred, and I immediately associate it with quiet and silence. So that's my main pleasure of thinking to have a forest sanctuary in Torres Vedras, a place where I can go not to be silent, but to hear the soundscape, because we cannot have a total absence of sound. There are always sounds, and I like to appreciate it. I want to say also that if that suggestion that Rui Matoso gave of exploring the idea to have that forest in Cucus, it would be a great idea because it's very near to the city, and the level of my participation would depend on that, of the proximity. But I'm loving this idea and I want to embrace it. So I'm available for whatever you want me to do. I can help you with funding applications. I can help you with paperwork. Just let me know, and I can tell you what I can do for you or for the project. I always want to say something. It's about mainly. It's about the legal framing,
okay,
of the land, because if it is to be a land to protect for 1,000 years, we will have to buy it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So who will be the owner? The landlord?
That's a very, very good question you're asking, and this is a question to be really explored in depth, because I believe that there are various possibilities and I think we must look at them. So it's a challenging question. I do believe that it's not going to be one person ownership. There has to be an organization that makes sense in the long term, and that organization that can guarantee the existence of this place and the organization itself, for sure.
Yeah, itself.
Yeah.
Because if it is like a small association or a small cooperative or something, there is a chance that it would not last like 1,000 years. So we have to look for a partner or some institution who has this chance to last for at least 50 years or, yes. Or so, that can pass it, that can consolidate the project with us and pass it to...
So I will just quickly respond and I will be able to share more information with all of you. I'm talking to a new foundation in Portugal, already mentioned, called Será Agora. The purpose of the existence is to help various projects, not necessarily only projects like Eternal Forest, but different kind of projects that are sustainable, ethical, and that would like to take care of the land in the long term. What they are doing, they're helping to take the land out of the circulation of the market and to guarantee the protection of the land for at least 100 years until we can help change the law so the land can be then protected in perpetuity. They're just setting up in Portugal. I'm in close touch with them. They actually, one of the organizers is my mentor, and they're helping a lot to really think through. So I think the first sanctuaries can be done on the back of this foundation before Eternal Forest hopefully one day will get its own foundation, but that is like a long, long journey. Okay. So there is at least one organization that is setting up that we are hoping we can collaborate with, and this is exactly their purpose. So, and then we create an association that manages this project locally.
Yeah, because that concerns me, because we should have a long-time perspective. So we can have a long-time project and work with a long perspective. But I'm very interested in collaborating with this project.
Thank you so much.
Again, I must say that my work in the field would depend very much on the proximity, because I don't have a car. So it should have proximity by public bus or something like that. But I want to be part of this project.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Fantastic. Thank you for your contribution. And I just wanted to quickly note that when I say silent, I actually don't mean that the forest is silent. Of course, the whole purpose of having a place that doesn't have like urban noise or kind of noisy human activities, that we can listen to nature.
And let me just ask something else. What is the desirable size of the land? Is there a
good question? So we say absolute minimum 1 hectare. Ideal medium scenario is 10 hectares. So it's like a mini forest.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you so much. I'll continue here. I want to hear until you all leave.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask if Kasia had any questions, because Kasia is a bit silent today. I know you're listening. Do you have any questions or comments for us? Maybe
in this moment, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So thanks everybody for being here. We can always continue later. I think we really ran out of time, and I know that a lot of us have other things tonight. It's also Friday. Happy Friday and happy coming weekend. I hope sun in Torres Vedras is shining now, because in Ericeira it's totally, yes?
Yes.
It's starting to clean. So Evgenia will send the information. If you think that is necessary, you can schedule another meeting. So to after thinking and maybe do some proposals or talk to different people that can join the conversation.
Yeah.
And then if needed, we keep in touch, and then we schedule another day.
I don't know if you all think it's a good idea or not, but I'm thinking we have to connect each other in a group, maybe in Facebook or WhatsApp. I don't know what is better for each other, but it is important that we have a place, a virtual place where we can talk with each other and share things, share ideas, and discuss some things in the long term. So it may be function like an archive also, but it might be a place essentially to connect everybody. If you all agree, I don't know which platform you are more likely to
hear Eloisa right now really strongly. I mean, I have a Facebook group for Ericeira, but now people asking me for WhatsApp group here as well, because not everybody is seeing, so it's possible to create both and usually just to duplicate. What I would do on my side, I will create also a Google Drive folder where I put all the documents that are related to the project, and also like a main document for meetings in Torres Vedras, and we will think together when to create next meeting. and I will send all of you like a follow-up email, so you have something from us. And then we see, maybe we make next meeting in 1 month. And my ask for you would be, can you think of one other person from your community that you could bring in, and maybe meanwhile explain to them the project? That would be really, really wonderful. That way we can bring some more people into the discussion, and maybe next discussion we can try to make a little bit practical.
Okay, Hugo said here in chat, what's up? It's a possibility. I don't know. Isabel, tell me something.
She said, what's up?
Yes,
What?
yes. I just want to ask, besides us that are gathered here now, we are like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
We were 9 people at the call at the beginning.
You registered 9 people.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we had people that subscribed, but it didn't show.
Yeah, that show up.
And do you have any idea of where those people live?
Mainly, I think everybody is from Torres Vedras. I don't know Rita Fox. I don't know Rita Fox, but Rui Matoso and other people inscribed, but the other ones don't.
Because, for instance, like Cássia and Elisa, they're not living in Torres Vedras. Okay.
No.
And
Elisa is from São Paulo. Cássia, I think she's also from São Paulo, but they are actually 2 collaborators of our cultural association.
Okay.
They want to bring things also replicating models and so on.
Oh, okay. That's why they are here. Okay.
Yes.
Hugo, are you from Torres Vedras?
Ericeira.
Ericeira, okay. So, as far as I can see, I'm the only one in Torres Vedras, and here, and Jorge and Daniela, and Rui Matoso. There is also Salomé Abril.
Yes.
I know very well David Negrão. I think we can work very well together. And did you have someone else who registered and from Torres Vedras and not appeared?
Yeah.
I don't know
3 people.
We had 2 more people, but I don't know if they are completely.
Well, but we know much people here that might be interested, and
want to join. Okay.
To bring them to this group to join us and work with us.
Okay. Thank you.
I want to say to everybody, before we are allowed to go anywhere in physical shape and form, I have a feeling, that's just my feeling, and please tell me what you feel. I have a feeling that we can do at least one other conversation like this and try to bring more people already through our personal connection. It's just to really make sure we get people on the call, because when we then get into physical space together, we will be just so much more aligned and prepared, and we will already know what is the next step. And even for practical things, I think we can already prepare a lot, because so many voices are pointing to Kuku. I heard many stories about Kuku. I never been there, but also I am hearing from some people that Kuku wants to go away from the owners. Somehow somebody told me it's a private in private hands, but they want to sell it, but they can't decide who they want to sell it. So I would like to also ask all of you on the call, and maybe you have friends who can help to really open this Pandora's box and to really clarify if it's possible to clarify this situation. So maybe we already, because this land seems like it's one of the possibilities, maybe it's good to clarify really who are the owners and what they're trying to do with the land, and if they're really trying to sell or not. And maybe if there is a contact, at least we know we have the contact. And then we think together maybe what is the best way to approach them or to talk to them, and maybe even share with them the vision. Maybe they would be interested. We never know.
Yeah. So I think we reached the end of the conversation. I don't know if somebody has something else to say or contribute. So no, no. Okay. Thank you so much, Hugo, Isabel, and the others that didn't reach the conversation in the name of our cultural association. Also to thank Cassia and Luisa to be here. It was not expected that they will join us. I'm very happy they joined forces to get in here with us. Thank you so much, Evgenia, also for the very detailed explanation and the beautiful images you showed to us. And it's all for me. And I want to wish you all a great weekend. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting and organizing, and look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you, Evgenia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Huge,
Bye-bye.
huge love to Brazil.
Oh, thank you a lot. We need.
Welcome.
Everybody needs nowadays.
Thank you so much. Until soon.
Until soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.